Hey, welcome back to the Artificial DM. Today we learn about a player and his experience with a dysfunctional group. Let's go ahead and jump into the RPG horror story. This post is from Throbbing Apathy, trying to learn to play D&D with crippling anxiety, Kermit the Frog, and a crumbling relationship all sitting at the same table. I had wanted to try Dungeons & Dragons for a very, very long time. I'm big into roleplay, and I like dungeon crawling video games. I also love making characters. I thought this would make D&D a natural fit for me, so when I got a text in early October of last year asking if I would like to play, I was pumped. The girl who asked me was a friend, one who I didn't spend much time with anymore. She had been my crush back in junior high, and we had reconnected when we coincidentally ran back into each other a few years later. She's a much louder, extroverted, and outgoing person than quiet, mild-mannered me, so we didn't hang out too often. Still, I valued her as a friend. We're going to call her Mina. Mina's boyfriend, who we'll call Claude, had been DMing a campaign with her and a group of their friends for the past month or two, but somebody had dropped out for one reason or another. For reasons still unknown to me, Mina thought I might be down to jump in, and once I accepted, we set a date for me to come to their place and have me watch a session. Let me see how the game works, and maybe jump in if I was feeling up to it. Upon entering the room where they'd been having their session, I was able to tell they were in a dungeon from the diagram of a big cave system laid out on the table. I have to pause here and give Claude credit. He was a good DM for the most part. Ambient music in the background, mood lighting, and a library of reading material to help a noob like me out. He had a pretty big ego though, after having some mild musical success. He introduced me to the party one by one. Mina was a human paladin, whose name I have absolutely forgotten, as the character was pretty forgettable to me. Across from me was a long, curly-haired, skinny dude we'll call Kyle. He was Ragnar, a dwarf warrior, I believe. The dungeon they were running was to rescue his long-imprisoned ancestor. Sitting beside me was the most experienced player at the table. We'll call him Dwayne. He's the only one that I can't remember even the race or class of, but that's probably because he was the most skilled and least insane person at the table. Unfortunately, meaning he was overshadowed by Evan, a human bard named Blonde. Evan was friendly towards me, and very energetic and eager. This was also his first campaign, but as I was joining mid-campaign, he'd learned most of the basics by now. Then there was me. Because it was on such short notice, I wasn't able to create my own character. Instead, I was to take over the character of the one who dropped out. I didn't mind this, as I just wanted to play. I was to be Bon Qui Qui, the High Elf Wizard. I was essentially a knowledge-hungry wizard who was more so with the party to learn exotic secrets than to save the world. I watched them go through a portion of the dungeon and do some combat. After combat, I jumped in and started participating a bit. Now, keep in mind that I haven't touched anything D&D up to this point, and I only know one of these people at the table personally. So the first bad sign was my bewilderment when everybody would stop talking and look at me, silently asking what I was doing next, as I was trying to figure out what's on my face. After a few painfully awkward moments, I get the hang of moving around, telling the DM what moves I want to make, rolling some basic checks and all that. We're in a tunnel system, and there is a dark fork over to the left. So I tell them where I'm headed, so they know in character, right? Yeah, just because they know doesn't mean their characters will. That'd be what's called metagaming. Me, in character, I'm going to check down this tunnel. I won't go too far in. The DM looks at me funny for a minute and says, well, not like that. I ask what I did wrong, still learning and willing to fix any mistakes I made. He says I have to voice act, and that Bon Qui Qui probably would be a lot snootier about it. He's a real high and mighty type. What I'd like to respond with is that Bon Qui Qui isn't really even my character, and I'm shy enough around all these new people without trying to pitch my voice to sound like a woodland creature scolding a school kid. I don't though, because I don't want to blow this. I power through, and honestly, it starts getting pretty fun. I win a few fights with the party and find a stash of diamonds that everybody else missed. I was in high spirits. The later into the session I got though, the more evident the problems became. Mina and Claude both smoked. And admittedly, this is something I was aware of. The issue was that they did it so often that it didn't take long before the whole room was boxed with smoke, making regular breathing a pipe dream. To Claw's credit, he recognized the issue and stopped smoking during play. Mina made up for his lack of it with her own though. Mina would also drink pretty heavily, leading her to be shit-faced for the latter half of the 2 sessions I ended up staying for, to the point where she would either have no idea what was going on, or turn murder hobo. a phrase I learned from Dwayne and immensely enjoy. This created tension with Claude, who was trying to hold the game together. They would have to stop the game to argue and bicker over trivial shit, like who bought the last pizza and where the cat was, stuff that really didn't matter in the middle of combat. Even when she wasn't drunk, Claude would snap at her and glare daggers at her when she said something he disagreed with. And to be fair, Minna did play it pretty loose with her metagaming, but she ultimately wasn't doing any real damage, at least as I saw it. I could tell there were a load of unspoken tension between them, and nobody else at the table wanted to say anything. Now I want to move on to the real bread and butter to go with the shitstorm stew. Evan and his bard. Remember when I said Evan was eager? He was very eager. Early on, we reached a part of the caves where it was too dark to see. My character had night vision, so I was fine. Everybody but Evan's bard, Blonde, had torches. Evan insisted on having Blonde vocalize how scared he was, and proceeded to verbally roleplay holding onto Dwayne's character's hips to guide him through the darkness for about 5 minutes. Did I mention Blonde's voice is a Kermit the Frog impression? We finally make it to a bend in the tunnel. Suddenly, spiders are coming at us from both sides. I look at the spells Banquiqui has available, and notice one that uses diamonds to create a powerful attack. I remember the diamonds I found earlier. I could make something happen here. Looking back, I realize giving me those diamonds earlier was undoubtedly Claude's way of getting me to be in the spotlight during a combat sequence. It worked. Using the spell, I'm able to single-handedly clear one side of the tunnel. Certainly the other 4 players can handle the other side. Evan screams in Kermit, refusing to let go of Dwayne's character. Dwayne rolls to knock the bard unconscious with the blunt end of his weapon, confident we could win without him and tired of his interference. Critical fail. He accidentally inflicts a major wound on the bard instead, and drags Dwayne's characters down to the ground with him as he falls. I admit, I laughed. Still, making the same assumptions as me that those two had it handled, the other 2 players had began moving a bit further down the tunnel, leaving me exposed to the incoming swarm of spiders. I didn't die, but by the time the other party members got to me, I was in rough shape. I probably should have died, but I think Claude wasn't in the mood to off the newbie in his first session. They patched up the bard, and towards the end of the second session, we finally reached the boss of the dungeon, a beholder. Now I hadn't ever even watched a game of D&D, but I floopin' knew what a beholder was. I was hyped to fight one. I could tell the DM had put a lot of work into this encounter too. The description of the room and the creature itself was immaculate, and the creature could speak, spouting lore about the story, giving me a reason to really get invested in. Half dead, Blonde jumps into the room, and Kermit yells that he is going to try to convince the beholder he is its master, and that he should be his pet. Nat 20. I hear Claude sigh after rolling some dice. So we don't get to fight the beholder, and now we don't know what the beholder knows about the overarching plot, because Blonde sends him off to leave the caves and return to town. The remainder of the dungeon goes much the same. Rescuing Ragnar's ancestor? Kermit does it. Finding the sacred artifact hidden in the secret room of the dungeon? Kermit. We're all frustrated with him, and it doesn't help that Mina's drunk. Claude's pissed, and Kyle is trying to hide the fact that he's been high as a kite the whole session. Despite how it went, I fully planned on going to the next session. They were taking a week off, so I hunkered down and spent the week learning how to build a character out of the official handbook, determined to not be saddled with Banquiqui. I ended up with Ruzin, an elven ranger. Happy with myself for showing some initiative, I presented the character to Claude. I'd prefer you made a wizard, and you're new, so make a human. I'd spent all week learning this process from scratch, between long, laborious work shifts, and I was just getting a character picked out for me again anyways. What's more, they hadn't thought to ask me my availability for the next session, instead opting to simply hold it without me. So it was with little fanfare that I left that group of friends, and have spoken little with any of them. I still chat with Minna here and there. She, as I expected, broke it off with Claude a month or 2 later, ending that campaign as it was anyways. Evan friended me on social media, but I had to block him after it turned out he was just as loud when it came to being an online bigot, and belittled everybody with a different opinion on anything than he had. I was sad that it went that way. When things were going smoothly, I was having a lot of fun. If I'd been able to play my own character instead of a hand-me-down, I'd probably have enjoyed it even more. I'd really like to play again someday. Hopefully, I get that chance. I understand giving a character sheet from the last player to try to get the newbie into the game and kind of show them, okay, this is how you do this, and then go ahead and talk to them and be like, what do you want to play? But that doesn't even include how Blonde had the game wrapped around his finger, or even the fact that they had no consideration to figure out when was the best time to play. or even the courteousness to just tell him we play every couple of weeks. This time, if OP couldn't make it, no fault there. But just to up and hold the game and be like, sucks to suck? I'm not even going to touch the relationship problems here, because obviously Minna and Claude did break up. I'm just hopeful that eventually OP does play again. It's a great game, and with the right group, it can be a great time. But that's at least what I think. Be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the story, please hit the like button. That's gonna do it for today. And until next time, hope you feel inspired.